Hey guys, how's it going? So I just got done with doing my driving for the night, and now I am back at it trying to show you guys what's up on what I've been trying to do and trying to tell people a lot about robotaxi and the future of AI and autonomous vehicles. So thank you everybody who's came into the lives on all platforms. So TikTok and Kick, Twitch, X, and YouTube. So thank you guys. I'm trying a different setup on different angles, especially for TikTok, so you guys can see the screen. Unlike last night, I only had you guys in front of me, so I want to be able to show you what I'm watching and comment on it too. So um, I'm going to wait maybe a little bit longer for people to come and join on the stream. I just passed 4,000 followers on TikTok, and thank you guys so much for watching my shows or my videos and commenting on them, whether it's good or bad. So I appreciate it a lot. So we'll listen to a little bit of music that I play when I am just out thinking, letting the car drive itself. All right, guys. Thank you, everybody from TikTok who's joining. Thank you so much. As time goes on, like the studio will build, right? So I'm going to try to get, actually, I already do have cameras set up on the screen so we can get different angles. I just added some lighting, so let me know how it kind of goes. I might need to get some more stuff, but just give me your, you know, comments on it, whether it's good or bad. I'll take anything. Constructive criticism is always what makes you better. So we're gonna probably listen to one more song and then kind of go where I'm getting my numbers and kind of going off that, and then actually doing my own plan once I get this proper information to think of what the potential it could be and stuff. So it's definitely an eye opener on the potential it could bring us. So thank you for everybody who's joining. I hope I can give you some educational purposes on this, and maybe you yourselves are thinking about being an entrepreneur and taking that big risk when others say, you know, that another company is ahead, or you know, this technology will overrun it, or what the case may be. But you see something that's far and beyond what other people are thinking, and I think that's my thinking, and I'm just trying to tell you guys what I'm thinking, because the future of AI is going to be so crazy big that I don't think a lot of us are prepared for. So um I'm definitely want to share all this information. I mean, there's plenty of enough money to go around for a $10 trillion autonomous vehicle, and I don't know how many trillions for humanoid robots. So, um, we're gonna start with just autonomous vehicles, like right now that I've been trying to show you guys on what's up, right? So I know you guys are commenting a lot on my TikToks on you know, conversations I have with people, or some of you guys comment that Waymo's ahead or Zooska's ahead or name your autonomous vehicle is ahead because Tesla's stuck at level 2 autonomy and Waymo's at level 4 autonomy. Yes, uh, those charts, if you believe it, yes, that's what those charts say. But I've been in a Waymo, I've been in a Tesla every single day. Waymos are actually, I give credit and kudos to them because they actually paved the road for Tesla to do what they're doing now. So, I mean, it's only a matter of time till Tesla comes out with a wider geofence with no safety driver, with no safety monitor. The difference between a safety driver and a safety monitor: one is in the passenger seat, one is in the driver's seat. So currently, I think on X that I saw the post was saying that finally Tesla has been granted statewide hail service. Let me just confirm that real quick so you guys can see. That's price comparison. Yeah, so right here, Texas clears Tesla's robotaxi for statewide service. Tesla got the green light to run its robotaxi service anywhere in Texas. Its first permit in the state for a full ride hailing operation. The program has been running quietly in Austin since June with human safety supervisors and Model Ys, but the new license means fully driverless rides are now on the table. So that's good. They jumped a hurdle. I thought that when they launched in June that it was going to take at least a couple months, maybe even 3, maybe even a quarter. So that was in my business plan as we speak. And it says Elon says the goal is to reach half of the US population by year's end. If regulators sign off, Texas can yank the permit if safety rules are met. And I think that Tesla has so much data right now in this version of software that is currently in Texas. It's not currently, I think it actually is currently in California. The only difference is that California has a safety driver, which Waymo had to go through, guys. Just remember that Waymo had to do the same things that Tesla is now doing too. So just always remember that. That's why I give kudos to Waymo, because they did pave the way for Tesla to be what they are today, and to expand that geofence and to go through all that bureaucracy and red tape that is regulation for the cities and the states and maybe counties, but I think more it's just is city by city or county. I'm just not quite sure. Just got to dig a little bit more into it. So with this, I have on the screen, it's his channel is Brighter by Herbert. He is absolutely phenomenal on getting guests that have been in this type of field. On top of that, just crunching numbers on what potentially it could do. So I want you guys to really pay attention, because this is what my line of thinking is, right? Is you get your first Tesla, you ramp that up to 2, you ramp it up to 3, and that's side hustles or renting it to somebody or whatever the case may be, in order for that car that you don't have to make that payment and insurance, that somebody else is doing that. And that's just step 1 of my plan. All right. Step 1. Okay. So we're going to play a little bit and then we're going to comment on it. So it does get some numbers. If you really wanted to look at it, it's Brighter by Herbert, and it says exclusive Tesla's robotaxi will disrupt 4 businesses, 4 industries. Okay. So if you guys wanted to listen to his channel, you can. Cern Basher, who he is interviewing and crunches numbers, is absolutely phenomenal. He's been on multiple channels on YouTube, and we're going to go over that. On top of that, we're going to go over probably later on about Seberg. I think his name is Richard Seberg or something like that, that gives the way of disrupting technology that is just destined for us. So you can, think of VHS to DVD, DVD to online, in that kind of realm, or the horse and buggy to gas powered vehicles, now gas powered vehicles to EVs, autonomous vehicles. So I just want to give you guys a little bit of a background on it, and then we are going to go over it periodically. Okay, so here we go.
The Amazon. That's going to be an interesting discussion, but let's start with your analysis here of whether or not you said here, would you invest in a robotaxi business, a fleet of robotaxis, Teslas, or would you put that money in Airbnb? It's interesting. What is this image? Where'd you get this one from?
This is another image from Grok, and I asked Grok to create an image of Airbnb versus robotaxi, and it put the Airbnb logo on the robotaxi. So Grok is being rather hopeful there, I think.
Okay, well, hey, it is a very interesting comparison. I love this theme that we're talking about, right? Is can Tesla's robotaxi disrupt? Everybody thinks it's just ride hailing, but in fact, it could be Amazon. It could be Airbnb. It could be, even Starbucks, by the way, because Starbucks took off because it's supposed to be this third place. People meet in that place. And by the way, I do think this is the shape, like not the shape, but this idea that you're going to have 4 people, 2 facing each other, sitting in a robotaxi for Tesla.
You guys are aware of Zeus.
Okay. So this is your thought process. This is what you ask people to challenge your thought. You said, okay, Airbnb versus Tesla robotaxi. What is financially more attractive? If you had this choice, what would you do? Would you take your hard-earned capital, buy a house, and rent it out on Airbnb, perhaps a long-term rental, or purchase as many Teslas as you can and add them to the robo-taxi network. What is likely to be the better financial decision? Let's take a look. So you go ahead and tell me your analysis here.
Yeah, so I started off taking a look at the overall U.S. housing market just to sort of set the base here. So there are about 130 million housing units in the United States. About 90 million of those are single-family homes. About 32 million multifamily or apartment properties, and about almost 8 million mobile homes. Of those properties, 130 million, about 45 million of them are rented out. Now, that's not all on Airbnb. Some of these are longer-term rentals. So about 35% of the housing units in the United States are offered for rent. So you can imagine this is quite a source of income for all those people that own those properties. And so what I wanted to do is sort of see, okay, we've got a little bit of data from Airbnb about how much their hosts earn in renting out their properties. How might that compare to the prospect of owning a robotaxi, either one or even a fleet of them, and what the economics might look like for that?
Okay, let's take a look at Airbnb's
Airbnb.
So Airbnb has told us that in 2022, their U.S. hosts earned about $22 billion by opening up their home to travelers, right? And they say that the typical host, which is the median amount that the hosts have earned, is $14,000 per year in 2022. So, that's a decent chunk of money, right? That seems, like a nice little bit of money for folks. Now, obviously, there's a wide range around this. There are some people that are making a lot more and some people making a lot less. So this is a little bit of a stab in the dark. But I decided to put this little table together down below and just kind of explore a couple things. If the median property value in the United States is around $400,000, so that middle row, then these Airbnb hosts are earning about 3.5% cash flow yield per year, if that's the right comparison.
Mm-hmm.
Now, certainly there are a lot of people not renting out homes. They might be renting out even just an apartment or a single bedroom. So to look at the median property value may not be the right number. So if it's half of that, if it's 200,000, then they might be earning about a 7% cash flow yield per year. Now, the one thing we should note here is that this doesn't include all expenses. This is just the $14,000 that they get from Airbnb. That doesn't cover their property taxes or their utilities or maintenance or anything like that. So just to get a rough idea, maybe people are earning between 5, maybe 10% on the value of their Airbnb property each year by using that service.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay. So let's compare that then to what it might look like for robotaxi. And as you know, I've built some pretty extensive robotaxi models. And I'll share the assumptions that went into this one in just a second, but let me first share the results. Let's say that you were able to earn $20,000 a year. So the middle row in this table.
Is for one robotaxi car, one robotaxi.
On putting your vehicle in Tesla's robotaxi network. Okay, and again, we'll get into the assumptions of how I arrived at that number. If your vehicle is worth $50,000, that's a 40% cash flow yield. And that $20,000 number, by the way, includes all expenses, insurance, charging, maintenance, depreciation, cleaning. That's an all-in number.
You see how CERN asserted depreciation? I don't think it's going to depreciate, because if that vehicle is constantly making you money compared to like a gas-powered vehicle where it just sits and waits, right? Then that car is always making money and just adding more value to your company that it's on, just picking up riders or other industries that it is going to disrupt here in a minute. So it's just something to think about. Not only can you just think about just rideshare, you have to think about other forms of industry, and they'll get into it here in a little bit. So, but let's keep going.
Now, a lot of people's Teslas are not worth $50,000. Some of them might be worth $25,000. So double that number, and you're at 80%. Now, the assumption here is that you put your vehicle in the network every day. Now, for a lot of folks, that's not going to happen. So let's say you put it in the network 25% of the time. That gets you to the $5,000 number per year, the first row on the table. Okay, and if the vehicle's worth $50,000, then you've got a 10% free cash flow yield. Mm-hmm. If your vehicle's only worth $25,000, that's a 20% free cash flow yield.
I think what CERN also, I don't know if he mentions it later on, but I think insurance is almost as big of a cost per month than I think maybe than supercharging if you're going to leave it on. Depends on how long you're going to leave it on the network for, but insurance rates are again absolutely out of hand. And if this car is designated as a robotaxi car and it is, 1 time safer, 5 times safer, 10 times safer than a human, then you are going to have low insurance costs because you're more likely to get hit by a human driver than that robotaxi car colliding with somebody else being at fault. I do account for 1% of at least accidents are caused by one of the robotaxi cars, but that's just 1%. So let's just say if you had 1 million insurance claims and only 1% of that is due to the robotaxi's fault, that's only 10,000 claims per 1 million. So just to kind of give you a heads up on that, that could be a big expense.
For just putting your vehicle in the network 25% of the time. Now, let's explore some of the assumptions here. I think I've been extremely conservative. That $20,000 in the middle of the table comes from the chart above at a 30% utilization rate in the robotaxi network. What does that mean? 30% utilization means that the vehicle is moving 30% of the time, i.e. 7.2 hours a day. Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, moving doesn't mean that it's earning money. Moving might mean that it's got a fare paying passenger or it's just moving to reposition itself. So 30% is a pretty low assumption, again, including a lot of miles that are not being paid for. Okay. So the robotaxi network looks very attractive, particularly if the utilization rate is even higher than that 30%. But I'm just charting out here the 30% utilization in that table. Now, what are the underlying assumptions to get to that $20,000 a year? Let's go to the next page. And the key one is cost per mile, a fare rate of 50 cents per mile and a base fare of $1 in blue. Okay. Compare that with Uber and Lyft, who are $2, $3, $4, even more dollars per mile on their service. So this is a pretty attractive number, pretty low number. And I don't think that Tesla will have to offer fares even this low initially. But I'm trying to project out a little bit and say, okay, at some point the fare will come way down. A lot of people will probably be incentivized to put their vehicle in the network. What will this look like when it's 50 cents a mile? And again, this is an average. There'll be times when it's higher and times when it's lower. And you can see the other assumptions, traveling at 25 miles an hour and that kind of thing. 40% of the miles are empty. Therefore, there's no fare for 40% of the miles that are traveled. And so on. So there's a whole host of assumptions that go into this, but I think these are pretty reasonable. The one thing I also do in my model is I charge for idle time, so that if somebody falls asleep, that you don't have the problem of trying to kick the person out of the vehicle. You just keep charging them as though the vehicle was still traveling at 25 miles an hour.
Yeah,
that works out to about 21 cents a minute. So the conclusion here is that putting your individually owned vehicle in the Tesla robotaxi network should prove to be a very attractive financial decision. And for all the people out there that say, you know what, I don't want somebody else in my vehicle, right, going to mess it up. Well, number one, plenty of people have people in their homes, right? Airbnb has people earning $22 billion a year by renting out their homes. So why wouldn't a good number of people do that with vehicles? Well, they will, and particularly because
So that is a good point. So every time when I am out driving and I pick a passenger, they always ask me, well, not always, but I mean, majority of the time, they ask me if anybody has thrown up in my car. And luckily, I haven't had that incident happen yet. So it is definitely something that is on my mind when that does happen. And hopefully, I have been very good at not getting it. So, or not having anything bad happen like that, which is great. So, I think if people are getting properties and then renting them out for Airbnb, I think this is a better solution, low cost as it is, because you only have to worry about a car. You don't have to worry about, maintenance on that house, property taxes, paying somebody to clean it. Very expensive to clean if you've ever rent out an Airbnb. So just giving you guys a little bit of cost analysis for it.
The economics are so attractive relative to Airbnb. I would even take it a step further, Herbert, and say that as people see the economics with this, as the robotaxi network starts up and sees how profitable it could be, that they may decide to sell their rental unit,
which is totally
and buy a robotaxi or 2 or 3 or more. So actually, it could disrupt the rental market as well until that market level sets. Right.
Yeah, I guess you have to find out what percentage of all those homes that are owned are rented, which you've got, but then what percentage is owned versus no. I'm trying to get investment. Like they bought it specifically for rental.
Certainly, there would be a large portion. I don't know the percentage, but I would imagine a good portion of the Airbnbs are investment properties.
Agreed.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just somebody's home that they're renting out.
I kind of agree with that.
The other concern I had was you used the number $50,000 for the Tesla car, which is what is today. If I bought a Tesla today, if I own a Tesla today, Robotaxi platform comes, I put it in, that makes sense. But when Robotaxi comes, I believe that values of Teslas will skyrocket. And so 2 years from now, you want to put your car in or get a car into the Tesla network.
I don't necessarily know if they'll skyrocket because Tesla's overall mission is to transition the world to sustainable energy. And if the car costs, $60, $70, $80, $90,000, that, even though it can make money, but you're still looking at a, $1,500 plus payment. I mean, then you would probably have to leave your car on the network for quite some time. I would have to go back into the video to see how long. It could be 50% of the time it has to be on the Robotaxi network. I just don't know, but I don't believe it's going to skyrocket. I believe that maybe the FSD take rate for how much you pay per month or one-time fee, even if the one-time fee is even still there, I don't know if that will still be there. I think Tesla might just say, hey, we're going to move to subscription only and do tiers, and the tiers would be, obviously autopilot is basic on the car that keeps you in the center of the lane, braking and accelerating on the freeway only. Then currently you have a supervised FSD to where you still have to be behind the wheel and pay attention a little bit. But the third will be unsupervised FSD to where you will be behind the wheel. So supervised FSD is currently $99. I could see that going up maybe $150. And then for unsupervised FSD, I think that could be in the range anywhere between $300 and $500 per month. So something to think about. That's why I only pay the one-time fee on the cars, because I'm grandfathered in.
You don't have a Tesla, you want to buy a Tesla, it's not going to be 50 grand at that point. It's going to be 100 grand. We did analysis on this when one of your shows before. Could even be 200 grand.
We did. We did. So I think the value of a money-making asset materially increases, right, as it makes more money. So right now the vehicle is a depreciating asset. It'll turn into a money printer, therefore the value should go up. So yes, what may happen is if that value goes up, then those cash flow yields come down to some level that makes sense relative to other types of investments out there, whether it's Airbnb or something else. So you could argue that what I've shown here is because the cash flow yield is so high, that there has to be some adjustment. Either a flood of people come in and push those yields down, or the value of the asset increases so that those yields come down that way too. There's different ways of getting there, but yes.
It's interesting. So we talked about most logical, robotaxi will disrupt ride-hailing business. That's the most logical thing, and taxis. Okay, and maybe even other transportation. That makes sense. However, it could also disrupt Airbnb. Not as direct, right? But do you think that people will actually like hail a robotaxi, work in the robotaxi? Some people actually live in a robotaxi. It doesn't make sense, right? They're not going to live in it, but they might use it as instead of renting out office, they might just, hey, let's meet in this robotaxi and we'll talk as it drives us around or something like that. I wonder what percentage. Small.
I think there's lots of little disruptions like that. Certainly, if Tesla charges for idle time and doesn't try to kick people out when the ride's over, then what's to stop you from finishing your conference call, your call with your colleagues, call with your family in the vehicle, or even just hanging out in the vehicle by yourself or somebody else, or particularly if you're going to do overnight travel, just sleep in the vehicle. You don't have to pay for a hotel, so it disrupts hotels.
There you go.
Exactly.
That's right.
Right. I think hotels at major destinations do fine, but hotels along the way may become less necessary.
Agreed.
Yeah. That's why when you showed this, I believe this is what Tesla's robotaxi will look like. Obviously, it's going to be cyber inspired, so it's not going to look like this, but the idea that it's going to look like a Zoox, where you got these sliding doors, you walk in, there's plenty of space. He called it a mobile lounge, and you might be able to sleep in it. And maybe the very first version is smaller than this.
See, what they're talking about here is like a Zoosk vehicle where it actually holds a lot of people, right? They haven't even mentioned Cybercab. They haven't even mentioned Model Ys or Model X's or Model S's or Cybertrucks or what is the case. They're talking about almost like a Zoosk-like vehicle that can hold, 6 or more people in it, and substantially bring the cost down from going to point A to point B.
But eventually you could extend it, especially with unboxed model. You can have more middle sections to make it bigger. And so you could possibly, I don't know, maybe in the future, we'll see, put in beds or even just comfortable seats that lie down.
I like that idea too, because when we think about disrupting Amazon, then you want a vehicle with some volume inside, potentially to carry packages or other items. So ideally, a vehicle with larger volume would be better if you're going to potentially use it as a delivery vehicle of some sort as well.
Well, let's talk about that next. So you've got this, which is you think that Tesla's robotaxi, and if you combine it with XAI, you can disrupt Amazon. So,
this video was shot, I don't remember when this was an occurrence. Let's see here. This was 11 months ago that this video was put out, and it's definitely XAI and Tesla have merged. And this year, in November, I think is when the shareholder meeting is. We as shareholders, me as a shareholder, can vote to say if we're going to invest in XAI. So I think even I don't know if it's investing or merging with it, but I think it's more investing. I could be wrong. If I am wrong, let me know in the comments. But yeah, we'll be able to get to vote on this, and that would be. I'm definitely going to be a yes in it because Grok is already in the car. Grok is currently in the car as we speak. All my cars have Grok, so the XAI and Tesla have already merged into one.
Okay, what are we looking at here?
Yeah, this is a longer term, kind of bigger idea, but I think it's worth exploring or starting to explore it. So autonomous vehicles certainly could be used for delivery vehicles. We just mentioned that.
Yeah.
Humanoid robots could be used to deliver packages from the vehicle to your door. Humanoid robots could also be used in the warehouses, distribution centers to load, unload, sort, etc. Amazon already uses perhaps up to 1 million robots of various sorts right now in their distribution centers.
Correct.
So that's already happening, right? But then you think about AI. So a couple things here. One is right now, Amazon and others do quite a bit of revenue from advertising. They are advertising to us, humans, to influence our behavior.
Correct.
In a world of AI, you don't need to advertise to humans as much or potentially at all. What you want to do is make sure that the AI and the algorithms that they use are aware of the product. So you kind of need to, quote unquote, advertise to AI, which is not advertising at all. It's very different. So I foresee a potential disruption to Amazon's ad revenue business, which is a growing business.
With Google's.
Secondly, Amazon's AWS, their cloud computing service. Amazon had a surplus of computing power. They discovered that if they lent that out to other people as a service, that they could make a lot of money. It turns out that's one of Amazon's most profitable lines of business.
So remember that Tesla is doing the same thing with Colossus. Colossus #1, and they're building Colossus #2. Colossus #1 is specifically using, I think it's 100,000 GPUs that is in synchronized with each other. Let me see if I can find it here on the other screen. XAI Colossus. Colossus it's in Memphis. So if we just do this real quick, right here. So you can actually see, oh, it's on the other screen for you guys. So let me see if I can just move it over. So you can see here. I don't know if it'll show. Oh, no, it doesn't show, but it'll show for my TikTok at least. XAI's Colossus is a massive supercomputer built in Memphis, Tennessee to power Elon Musk's AI chatbot Grok and other AI initiatives. So this is doing the same thing as what Amazon AWS is, Amazon Web Service. So, and they're building 2 more. So 2 more are going into or no, 1 more, excuse me. I think they're building 1 more into to help support. So then that'll be 200,000 H100 GPUs that are synchronized all and using Tesla Powerwalls to help with the power surge, because they have been dealing with that on the power surges. So just something to think about as another service for XAI to take over some of Amazon's AWS.
However, the cloud computing industry is undergoing a transformation right now from a CPU-based business to GPU, or from traditional cloud computing to what NVIDIA calls an AI factory. Well, who's building an AI factory? XAI is.
Yes.
And others. Meta and Google and Amazon are too. As well as Tesla, frankly. So XAI and Tesla may find themselves in the same position that Amazon had, where they have this surplus of compute at times that they may want to try to optimize, and therefore that could become a line of business for them as well.
So yes, it could be a line of business, but I think they're going to need a lot more GPUs and a lot more data centers like that, just because it's going to have to be able to help train Optimus. Because if you plan on having billions of humanoid robots, you're definitely going to need a lot of GPUs and a lot of compute to manage all of those robots. So just something to think about, that it might not be distributed to other companies and use that as a service. They just might keep it all to themselves in order to train Optimus, in order for them to get it out there to the masses.
And in that sense, they'd be competing directly against AWS as it transforms itself to an AI factory. So, every aspect of Amazon's business now potentially could be disrupted by Tesla and or XAI together. Again, this isn't going to happen overnight. The other longer term thing too is that Amazon makes quite a bit of money by housing products from other companies. They're kind of just a distribution center from other sellers, and then Amazon fulfills those orders.
Fulfillment.
Well, with humanoid robots, you could actually have the bots build some of those products in the local markets. So now, instead of shipping cheap products from China, you could actually have them made around the corner as they're being ordered. Kind of made to order kind of products. And you wouldn't need maybe the massive distribution centers that Amazon has today if you've got kind of a bot factory that can just make things as they're ordered. And that's the beauty of a general.
I think that we're a long way from that. I could be wrong, but I mean, it is a realm of possibility that it could happen sooner rather than later, but I predict it's going to be like late 2035 into 40 that maybe will happen. I mean, I could be wrong. I mean, Elon is talking about going into production for Optimus sometime next year, and they already worked on Gen 2, and he says it's absolutely phenomenal. So who knows what this is going to what this is going to take us to and how fast it's going to move. So just something to think about.
Purpose humanoid robot is it can do anything. Again, that's much longer term. We're not anywhere near that yet. But just every step along the way, everything that Amazon has built, I can see potential disruption for.
Yeah.
And it might be 15, 20 years from now, but still that we're heading in that direction.
Yeah, I understand that the way Amazon disrupted retail was these retail, like say Walmart, Target, and all these guys, right? All these retail stores, they had to have expensive retail locations in the city. And then they had to inventory it at a warehouse, deliver those inventory to those retail stores. Amazon created these cheaper distribution centers, automated it, and of course automated the ordering, which is the killer app. And then that's how they, just made it so much cheaper. So what you're talking about is that if you don't need these, even in the middle warehouses in a cheaper location, you can have smaller amounts or even less of them distributed throughout. That can disrupt Amazon. I'd love you to do a full analysis if you're interested in transportation business, right? You've got the airlines, of course, then you got the long haul. I've heard Elon say before that Tesla Semi will disrupt short haul, but if it could theoretically, if you actually have a daisy chain or what do they call that, where they're all a convoy, you could actually disrupt trains. And there was actually a statistic of, it can actually be 30%, or if they can lower the cost by 30, well, I can't remember the number now, but it could match a train or be cheaper than train. Yeah. You're disrupting long haul. And then this is the final mile, the local final miles with these delivery vans going from one place to another. So yeah, there's a huge business there. So there's no doubt right now Tesla's doing.
So what he means by like a caravan or a convoy is, imagine a Tesla Semi, which is only a one-seater. It sits in the middle. If you haven't seen it, look it up. They're supposed to go into production this year, limited production in Giga, Nevada. And that is definitely going to disrupt because you can actually get 500 miles on that battery charge, but you need to add mega chargers to the locations. So currently they did one with, I think it was Frito-Lay's potato chips, some type of chips that they were using. I forgot which company it was, but it actually went from the Bay Area down to LA, which is close to 500 miles. It's like maybe 400 miles or so. So, and they are currently doing runs right now from Giga, Nevada to Fremont to deliver batteries and powertrains, which is the motors that go into the cars, mostly I think Model Ys, but I could be wrong on all motors. So imagine you have one truck, and that one truck is, let's say, the lead truck, and that lead truck, I'm sure in the beginning that will have one human driver, but imagine you have 5, 6, 7 or 10 plus Tesla semis right behind it carrying goods and going from point A to point B. And that caravan is now eliminating a human driver in it, which would be substantially break down the cost even more. So autonomous vehicles are not only just into the Model S3, X, and Y in the Cybertruck. It's actually in semis now. Then after that, it'll probably be in buses and caravans and so on and so forth. I mean, the campers, and you can just name it. Anything that has wheels will be autonomous. It'll be fully autonomous to where there will be no human driver.
They're going to do robo trucks and then they're going to do cars. Why wouldn't they do these middle vans that's going to come soon, right? Yeah.
Yeah. The other opportunity, I think, too, is sort of AI to interface directly with manufacturers, right? So why have a middleman at all if your AI agent can aggregate my order, your order, everybody's order, and then negotiate something with the manufacturer and say, hey, I've got 1 million orders for XYZ.
It's almost like being a dispatcher in that sense, just FYI.
Drop shipping or something, or
something,
build on command.
Yeah. So the human is going to be taken out of the loop almost everywhere along that chain. So the need to store a lot of things in distribution centers and Amazon warehouses may go away. Now, it's not like Amazon won't have this opportunity as well.
Live. Thank you for joining.
Right.
So they won't be standing still either. I'm not suggesting that Tesla just takes over everything that Amazon does. In fact, it may be a tall order and it may not be worth it.
Yeah.
But it is.
For the new viewers who are new into this live right now, we are currently talking about robotaxis and what industries it will disrupt. So I'm giving you my take and my thinking commentary on this. These are the videos that were inspired by me. This one was 11 months ago, and currently there's just so many coming out because robotaxi is currently live in Austin and in the Bay Area in California. So this is my last plan of what I'm trying to do with all these cars. Yes, I am a holder of Tesla stock too.
It's interesting to think about.
Yeah, you don't need disrupting Amazon is big challenge.
So there is a question from Shaquille 504. If you do have 3 Teslas, they all can earn, correct? Yes, once Robotaxi is live, but you also have to remember that currently the cars that are on Robotaxi network in Austin are hardware 4 cars. So late 2023 and present now is all hardware 4s. If you have vehicles before that, which are on hardware 3, more than likely, this is my opinion, I don't think they will be able to have a robotaxi capability because they don't have enough compute. And how much can each one earn? It just depends on how long you leave it on the network. Estimates have been anywhere between $60,000 to $120,000 for one car if you leave it on the network 100% of the time. So that's what I plan to do. Probably 90% of the time, because if I want to get picked up and dropped off somewhere, obviously it's going to take something away. So I can see Shaquille 504, you do have hardware 4, so that's good. That is where you want to start with first, because currently hardware 4 is in there right now. So it can anywhere potentially make you, just real quick, between $60,000 to $120,000 in gross after expenses and everything. I think it's a 50% take rate. So it's anywhere between $30,000 to $60,000 in net profit. That's after maintenance, cleaning, charging, insurance, miscellaneous stuff that you can think of. I gave it a 50% take rate.
They're such a behemoth and they're so technology forward, but yeah, there's a lot of business outside of Amazon that you can disrupt.
You have to pay attention to this transportation. This is going to be the next one. $10 trillion market cap.
Product sales, right?
Just for autonomous vehicle right here.
Retail sales.
Oh. So that doesn't even include the other industries that it could disrupt. It could disrupt package delivery. It could disrupt food delivery. It could disrupt inference. Inference is using the compute power to help train AI. If the car is sitting idle, you can actually get paid from that, from using that compute power in the car to help train XAI's neural nets. So even if the car is standing still, it can still make you money. So just giving you guys a heads up on what those 4 can be. I'm pretty sure there could be more. Package delivery, I think, will be later because I think it has to use Optimus Robot unless there is where it's all separated into like bins and stuff with that person's name. Like, this is your package, and then they take it and go. It's almost like food delivery. So that remains to be seen.
Okay, so let's talk back to the business. So we've talked about disrupting. Robotaxi is going to disrupt ride hailing. It's going to disrupt maybe some sort of version of Airbnb, or at least you were just explaining that
you can't put on the network yet. Probably at the end of 2026.
In Airbnb,
once that happens, I will let everybody know, because by that time I'll have probably
it can disrupt maybe Amazon or shipping or transportation. But of course, the most logical one is actually disrupts auto. And Elon has said several times, right, that if you are an automaker and you're trying to create your EVs and you're trying to turn into a profitable business, but if you don't have robotaxi, all that doesn't matter anymore anyways. But in the meantime, they can't even create the EV in the first place. So tell me about this presentation you have on the $100 billion cash furnace. Beautiful photo.
Yeah, again, this is from Grok. As you can tell, I'm having some fun these days playing around with Grok.
Yeah,
I asked it to create a giant cash furnace, and this is what it came up with.
It's almost like they're worshiping the cash. It almost looks like a Buddhist temple or something like that, or a temple.
Yeah. So when we look at the state of the EV industry, perhaps if you just go to the next slide, Herbert. So this is what's usually presented, right? You look at how many vehicles Tesla sold, how many vehicles everybody else sold. This is for the month of June in the United States. Mm-hmm. Tesla sold 61,000 vehicles, and the other companies collectively sold 47,000. So people create sort of, Tesla's got XYZ market share. I think in this case, it's like 55% or something like that.
And these are for the numbers in June of 2024. Again, this is a year-old video. Tesla is slated to make anywhere between 1.7 to 2 million vehicles this year alone.
Yeah.
In the month of June.
Majority of that is coming from Model Y and Model 3.
But you're leaving out an important thing. It's not just market share that matters. Yeah. And so I felt compelled to make an annotation to this chart. And if you go to the next slide, here it is.
This says
profitable. Right. The big distinction is that Tesla is selling those 61,000 vehicles at a profit. Now, albeit a lower profit than what they were a few years ago, but nonetheless a profit. And the other companies are what I refer to as the cash furnaces.
Yeah.
I believe every single one of those companies is losing money, and many of them a lot of money, on selling their EVs.
Now, you guys have to remember, this is taking the chart from what their manufacturing process is now. Okay. Now, when the unbox system comes in, which means that it will be able to make one car every 5 seconds. Let me repeat that again. One car every 5 seconds that unbox system to build a car is going to create. Now you're asking, what is the current rate right now? So the current rate right now, the best one is in Shanghai. Shanghai currently does one vehicle for every 33 seconds. That is just with the processes that I have now. So imagine, let's just say one every 30 seconds is much easier. If the Robotaxi can do one, or the unbox system can do one of every 5 seconds, that's a 6x. A 6x more than they are doing currently with that rate. And so this profitability is going to go up even more, because now you're getting out 6 times more cars than the current system of making a vehicle right now. If you haven't looked at it, we will go over the unboxing manufacturing later. We're just going to probably go over just the numbers of Robotaxi, potentially what it could bring.
So that's this idea of, they're just burning money. Yes, they're selling you a car, but they're not selling you the car for what it costs them to make. So this is unsustainable. Now, it can go on for a while. The question is how long, how much pain and how much money do they want to lose?
Yeah.
Right? But at some point, it will end. That's the definition of unsustainable. It has to end at some point. And Elon has mentioned this a couple of times recently, that this is temporary.
Yeah.
Right. So let's just look at how bad it is. First of all, just to kind of level set, this is Tesla's auto gross margins since the founding of the company. And they've been positive all the way through, except for one little blip in 2012. Okay. But overall, they fluctuated, but it looks pretty good. Compare that with Rivian and Lucid. Right? Their gross margins have never been positive. In fact, they're massively negative. Now, gross margin is one thing. This doesn't take into account all the expenses that a company has in running its business. This is like the cost to, the price they sell the car for, and then the cost to make it. It doesn't include other corporate expenses or CapEx or other things like that. It's just the difference between the price of making that car versus the price they get for selling it. So right here, Tesla is head and shoulders above everybody else if you just look at this one chart.
Well, you're comparing it only just at this point to the pure play EVs.
And it's steady.
Yes.
And then the question I have for you is against these two, is it because when Tesla initially came out, there was no competition?
And remember, that's the
premium Roadster. They went with the Model S. There was nothing out there. So they were able to charge pretty expensive prices and then eke out their margin versus these guys come out when there's so much options, nobody was going to pay them. You know, they're limited how much. Or as Elon was saying, he's so focused on cost reduction
so much, and everybody else.
And he has said that if Rivian and Lucid, specifically these two, he has said if they don't cut costs significantly, they're not long for this world, was the words he had used. Is that it? The cost, or is it?
So you have to remember, so these companies right here are invested in other big companies are invested in these companies of Rivian and Lucid. So Rivian, Amazon currently has a stake in Rivian. Rivian actually makes the Amazon's electric vans right now as we speak. I don't know if the production's paused yet. I just got to double check, but they are still they are making their Amazon fleets of delivery vehicles that are electric. The other one is Lucid. Lucid has the Saudi fund, I think it is. So they have unlimited amount of funds because that's all oil money. So they are literally just sucking on that cash cow as we speak. They don't even care about costs. I think the post on X saying that it was losing $100,000 to $111,000 per vehicle or something like that. It's something crazy for Lucid. Rivian's is only losing like $33,000 per vehicle, which is substantially down too. So which is good for them. I hope Rivian does pull through. I love their R1S. I wish Tesla made an R1S. So just give you a little bit of background on how these guys are funded, how these companies of Rivian and Lucid are funded. Okay.
At the market.
Well, Lucid's selling a premium vehicle, right? Also, I would say Tesla blazed the trail. Tesla created a market where there was none.
Correct.
Essentially, there might have been a few EV hobbyists out there, but there was no mass market EV company. Tesla blazed that trail, and they made a lot of mistakes along the way.
Yep. Yes, they did.
Right. You read Walter Isaacson's book, and it's mistake after mistake after mistake that they made. And so in some ways, Tesla's made it easier for these companies.
If you haven't read that book by Walter Isaacson on Elon, it's actually a phenomenal book. I got it. I read it in literally 2 days. Go ahead and see that. It's definitely a great book on the insights of what Elon was thinking at the time and then Tesla at the same time for that.
They've shown the playbook and how this works.
Interesting. Yeah.
But it's hard. It's still not easy, even if you know the playbook. Yeah.
No, so it's mostly cost management then. Okay. Yeah. So this is, you're basically 18.5%. And in fact, even compared to BYD, the only other company that possibly is making profit. And then of course, there's other car companies in China that are being fully or majorly subsidized by China. So it's hard to know, but only BYD is one reporting profit regardless. So
that's right.
So
let's just kind of level set and show what success looks like.
Yeah.
So this is Tesla's cumulative operating cash flow since 2012, their IPO date, I believe. And you can see that they lost money for a long time, but not massive amounts, right? There's, a couple 150 million. There's some bigger numbers in there, but the cumulative losses weren't huge on an operating cash flow basis. And then they hit an inflection point and they started making money. And since then, the rest is history.
Yes.
But operating cash flow does not include the cost of building factories. So if you go to the next page, you also have to consider how much it costs the company to make the factories to build the vehicles that they could sell. Right. So you have to look at the CapEx, and Tesla has invested almost $45 billion since the IPO in CapEx.
Whoa.
Right. So a lot of reinvestment. So if a company is going to compete against Tesla, chances are they're going to have to invest something on this scale as well. Right. A big investment. Now, if you take the operating cash flow, take out the CapEx, you get to free cash flow. And that's the next slide. So Tesla did lose about $10 billion at one point in free cash flow. They were in the hole $10 billion. And then they turned the corner. They had enough volume. They turned the corner. The cost structure was the right way, and they started making money. Kind of in fits and starts at first, and then solidly for a while, and then they've hit a couple bumps in the road along the way here recently. But overall, they've made about $10 billion in free cash flow since the IPO.
That's a lot.
Over the last 12 years.
This is the Model 3, and then this is the Model 3 and Y here. Boom.
Yeah, Model 3 starts, I think, in the summer of 2017. So that's what allowed them eventually to turn. It wasn't immediate. There was still a few rough quarters. And they went through the production hell phase. It wasn't easy for Tesla. Okay, so that was Tesla's experience. Now, let's take a look at Lucid. Here's Lucid's average vehicle production cost. Now, you could argue that they've made great headway here. Initially, it cost them $1.2 million to make their average vehicle in Q4 of 2021. Okay, that's an outlier. They just started. Super expensive. But you can see that they've gotten the cost down now to about $196,000 per vehicle. Okay, production cost.
It's now at $111,000.
That's great.
So
wait, that's $196,000 from what it was.
$1,000.
Yeah, perfect.
So much it costs to make an average Lucid.
Yeah.
Okay. Now here's the problem. If you go to the next page, they're selling them for an average price of $84,000.
Yeah.
So they brought the price down as well as the cost. And so it's the difference between these two that matters. And the next slide shows the average loss per vehicle. And they're still losing about $113,000 last quarter on selling their vehicles. Okay. And this is not, this is the gross profit. This is before a whole bunch of other expenses. So, it's a difficult business to make any money in EVs, and Lucid is certainly showing that. If you take a look at their free cash flow on the next slide, solidly negative. More negative than Tesla ever was.
And the Saudi fund is just keeping them
improving
in business
a little bit here and there. They lost $1 billion in free cash in the first quarter of 2023, and last quarter they only lost $741 million in free cash flow. And as a reminder, free cash flow takes into account CapEx. So this is a more complete look at how the company is faring. Okay. Now, let's look at Rivian. Rivian's free cash flow was about $1 billion last quarter, negative $1 billion. So they're burning more cash than Lucid is. They're selling more vehicles too, but they're losing more money. So this is a problem. And the question is, can these companies turn the corner and begin to, can they turn off this cash furnace? Right? Can they convert their cash furnace into a money printing machine like Tesla did? And it's not looking so good. Here's another company, VinFast. Their free cash flow, losing about $700 million in the last quarter. This is Q1 of 24. I'm not sure. Well, it's recent. Maybe they're on a different sort of quarterly system. But this is the most recent data we have for VinFast. Now, the problem is a lot of the companies that make automobiles like Ford and GM and others, most of them do not report their EV segment separately. So we don't really know the health of their business. Now, to Ford's credit, they give us some information. So on the next slide, you can see the losses from their EV sales, and this is earnings before interest and taxes. So it's not cash flow.
So I'll go back to VinFast. VinFast is a Vietnamese electric vehicle manufacturer, part of Vingroup, aiming to drive the global smart EV revolution. Established in 2017, VinFast has a manufacturing complex in Vietnam with high automation and is expanding globally, including a planned manufacturing plant in North Carolina. They offer a range of EVs, including VF8 and VF9, with a focus on advanced technology, safety features, and sustainable future. So it's a Vietnamese company.
Doesn't take into account CapEx, but still it gives us some clues. They're losing 1.1 billion last quarter.
On Ford.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and that's an improvement. They lost almost 1.6 billion in Q4 last year.
Let me see what Ford's financial.
So as these companies attempted to scale up, they lost more and more money, and they didn't hit that inflection point that Tesla hit with the Model 3. Right, and so Ford and others now have pulled back on their EV plans, and Ford now is facing a $1.5 billion, a $400 million charge, I think, this quarter, and they said they're going to spend another 1.5 billion in additional charges in coming quarters.
Yeah, they straight out said that they're canceling their 3-row SUV, completely just gone, that EV.
Man.
And then they are delaying the next gen Ford F-150 truck, the next generation of their EV for the truck, till 2027, late 2027. And they're focusing on just their commercial vehicles and hybrids. So they are pulling back significantly.
And they also said they believe that they wouldn't create a path.
In my opinion, I think Ford, GM, Daimler, all the Europeans, they are cooked. They are going to be cooked. The reason is because they're not investing in EVs. They are standstill at EVs, and that is not a good place that you want to be in. You do not want to be standstill in that, because that is the future. That is your autonomy. That is your autonomous vehicles. That is everything you can imagine, when Tesla's probably going to license out their FSD to all manufacturers. And mark my word, if they do not take Tesla's FSD hardware and software, they will go bankrupt or consolidate. Then after that, we'll still be bankrupt. It's just a prolong of the inevitable of them going bankrupt.
Passenger vehicle, unless they could be EBIT positive within 12 months. And the likelihood of that is next to nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. So, that's even hard for Tesla to achieve with a new vehicle.
Yeah, they're all doing this. GM fired a lot of people in China, and they fired a lot of people in their software divisions. They're all pulling back because they can't continue all this losses, massive losses.
Yeah. So to hit this home a little further, I compared Ford with Tesla at about the same point in their life cycle.
Yeah.
And this is Tesla in Q3 of 2016 sold about 24,800 vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
Ford in Q2 of 2022 sold about 20,000. Didn't sell it to buyers necessarily. They pushed those vehicles to their dealers. So those are called wholesales. Yeah. So it's a little bit of an apples and oranges comparison, but we don't actually know how many vehicles Ford sells because they only report the sales to their dealers. Yeah. And that's a number that Ford can kind of control quarter to quarter.
Mm-hmm.
Nonetheless, if we treat those as similar, then we can map out the progress that Tesla had from 2016 through to Q4 2019. The yellow arrow, by the way, is when the Model 3 was introduced. Okay. And you can see that a couple, 3 quarters later, that was a material change in the company. They were able to get out of some financial challenges that they had and really change the nature of the company.
Yeah,
Ford, you can see in terms of their deliveries is kind of bumping along and not really showing any growth at all.
The blue is Ford, the red is Tesla.
I've been using this number because as I interviewed a few people, I think I heard this number from Monroe and Associates, whether it's Sandy or from Corey when I interviewed them. But
Sandy Monroe is part of Monroe, I think Monroe Live, and he breaks down all these vehicles literally piece by piece, part by part, and does a very detailed analysis of the car. You should watch him. I think it's under Monroe Live on YouTube. So he has broken down all the Tesla cars and vehicles and given his cost analysis on it that you can purchase if you are an auto manufacturer. So if you want to see how the insides of the Tesla is built, what it's built with, it's definitely a great channel to be in if you're into that manufacturing process of it.
Heard was that in order for you to be scaled at scale of a car business, you need to be making 200,000 vehicles per year. So by quarter, that would mean 50,000. I mean, sorry. 50,000 vehicles per quarter. So when you hit this number right here, this arc here, then you can start really getting scale and starting to reduce your cost per vehicle. and increase your gross margin. That's my understanding. And all these car companies are like 1/10 of that. They're not even near that number, except for a couple companies that are getting close.
Yep. Yep. And so the next slide shows revenue. And here's the discrepancy is even bigger, right? So while Tesla had a similar number of vehicles at the beginning that Ford did, Ford's revenues was lower, right? When they were both selling around 25,000 vehicles. Tesla had steady growth, and then the Model 3 hit, and the growth took off, with the exception of the production hell period that's shown there. Ford has not really had any traction in terms of revenue growth from their EV business.
So I have Ford's numbers right here on the other screen. So according to third quarter 2024 results, revenue US is $46.2 billion. It's up 5.5% from Q3 of 2023. Net income is $892 million, down 26% from Q3 of 2023. Profit margin 1.8%. It's down from 2.7% in Q3 of 2023. EPS is US is 22 cents, down from 30 cents. So it doesn't look good for Ford.
In fact, you could argue that there's a flat line or maybe even trending down at this point. Okay. And then the next one is EBIT, earnings before interest, costs, and taxes. And Tesla, yes, they were struggling at this point too, right? It wasn't easy for Tesla. I'm not suggesting it was. They were losing, 500 million or so per quarter. And then the Model 3 was introduced. A couple quarters later, they're able to get enough volume production, and they were able to turn the corner again. Then they hit production hell. But after this is when they really turned the corner. I didn't graph that out because it makes the Ford numbers look even worse. But Ford, you can see, is solidly losing, $1 billion plus a quarter. For them to only lose 500 million would be a massive success at this point.
And again, I mean, that's probably timing, right? I mean, they came up with their EVs, but there's options. There's the Model 3 and Model Y. You got all these other car makers coming out, and then they were doing well with their F-150, but now the Cybertruck is coming, and so what's going to happen in the future here is their F-150 is not going to be as successful as it used to be.
The Cybertruck was a flop for sure.
That's right. The Mach-E had some initial success, but I think that customers didn't respond that well to it. They haven't really sold a whole lot of them. Certainly compared to the Model Y, it's not anywhere close. And I think the same will be true of the F-150 Lightning. When you put up against the Cybertruck, it just doesn't compare well. And then the final chart in the series, Herbert, is the EBIT margin. And again, you can see the separation. So at worst, Tesla's EBIT margin was minus 20%, which isn't great. But Ford's EBIT margin is minus 100%.
Yeah.
So they've got a bigger hole to dig themselves out of in more ways than one. Okay. So the next page shows Ford's cumulative losses. They've lost, according to AJ, about $9.3 billion.
Wow, that's a huge investment. Yeah.
Right.
I mean, they tried.
Yeah.
Yeah, they sure did.
And AJ puts out this great chart. It's shown on the next page of the free cash flow history of the pure EV makers. And in this case, he's also added Ford. Now, the numbers on the previous page are not free cash flow for Ford. It does not include CapEx. So Ford is kind of in lucid territory in terms of losses. And if you add back CapEx, it may be even closer to Rivian, or maybe in the middle of between Lucid and Rivian in terms of how much they've lost.
So, okay, so they might have invested way more than $9 billion, like closer to $20 billion, if you do.
Well, they would have invested quite a bit of money in factories to build the products, right? That's not free.
Yeah.
So I just looked up to see if they said that they delayed things until 2027. I think it was for their EVs. So I just looked it up. It says delayed EV production. Ford has postponed the launch of the next generation Ford F-150 Lightning and E-Transit van to 2028. So it's a year delay on top of that. So you can just see that they don't have any comparable EVs that can compare to.
They didn't just convert an ICE vehicle line to EV.
Yeah. So pulling back now is interesting. I will say this is what I was thinking in my head, and tell me if I'm wrong here. It's hopefully I don't take us off a different direction here. But if you're an EV maker and you had to try to create EVs in the market, which many of these guys did, a lot of the pure plays did it, a lot of the legacy autos are doing it, but they're losing significant money.
A lot.
Now you find yourself today and you're watching robotaxi develop, autonomy. And you're going, okay, a few years ago, it was like maybe 5-10 years from now, let's keep working on our EVs. But today you're going, maybe what I need to do is partner with like create EV ready cars as autonomy ready cars, not just EV only, and kind of like jump the gun. I don't know. I might be completely wrong there, but I'm just saying you're chasing the wrong race at this point.
Yes.
So why drop off and then partner with Tesla and then rerun? I think we've heard Ford has a Skunk Works project. They might be doing that. I don't know.
They better be, because if we are moving to a world of autonomy, you are, as a consumer, you're no longer buying a vehicle. It's no longer reflects your own personal choice and taste, etc. So in a consumer product world, you need variety because people want to be unique and they want to feel special or whatever. Right? You don't want to drive the same vehicle as your neighbor or whatever it might be. But in a world where it's one of rides, you're not selling a vehicle anymore, you're selling a ride, you're selling an experience. The outside of the vehicle isn't really going to matter. Just like when I get a ticket on a train, a bus, or an airplane, I don't really care what those things look like.
Yeah.
I want them to be safe and I want the inside to be very comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I fly certain airlines is because they're better than other airlines inside the plane.
Exactly.
They're flying the same plane, right? But it's the experience inside that's where the differentiator is. And the same thing is going to happen with vehicles. So all these companies are trying to develop unique EVs. They have missed the boat entirely because that's not where the market's going to be. It's going to be about experience. And the sooner they realize that, then there's some hope for survival. If they don't, then they won't survive.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. You need to start designing robo-taxi first vehicles. The one that we showed at the beginning that looks almost like a van or something. Lounge inside. Work on that instead of no steering wheels, and just partner with an autonomy company because who knows? Maybe they're still thinking it's going to be 10 years away. But if they don't right the ship now with this, and you're pulling back, by the time that they do right the ship, let's say, they're all saying this, right? We're all going to start reinvesting again in 2027, 2030. Whoa, 27, 2030. The world might be very different by then.
It's game over by then.
Yeah.
And just to put a bow on our previous discussion, if you go to the next slide, taking AJ's data, and this is AJ's work here, in the next chart, Tesla has made close to 11 billion in cumulative positive free cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
We believe that they're the only automaker that has made any money on EVs, with the exception perhaps of BYD, but we don't know.
We don't know.
Every other automaker, we believe, has lost money, and you can see them kind of ranked there. Rivian has lost almost 22 billion, Lucid 10 billion, Ford before CapEx lost 9 billion, NIO 8.5 billion. These are the pure EV makers. Factor in Volkswagen and GM and Hyundai and all these other companies. So these pure EV makers here have lost 73 billion just on this chart.
Why is BYD not on this list?
Well, I don't believe we have the data for them to be able to include them in here. They don't report enough information for us to know.
Okay,
same problem with GM. We just don't know the losses in their EV business.
Mm-hmm.
It's safe to say, and this is why I titled the slide, $100 billion cash furnace.
Yeah.
It's safe to say and conservative to say that the entire automotive industry, pure EV or otherwise, has lost more than 100 billion trying to make EVs.
Well, these are already 50 billion right here, 20, 30, 40, 50 billion right here. So yeah.
Crazy.
So it might even be closer to 200 billion worldwide.
It's probably crazy. It's worse. I mean, if you think about the Chinese market, there's so many companies out there and they're all losing money, right?
Yeah. So it's staggering. It's really astonishing. I've not seen the number before. It's absolutely staggering when you think about the industry losses and trying to move to EVs. And there's really only one company for sure, and maybe there'll be 3 or 4 survivors, but there won't be many. And as you mentioned earlier, we're shifting rapidly away from making EVs to this transportation as a service business model, which is entirely different.
Yeah, except I've been saying this quite often. In the last week, I've had almost every show, so I apologize for those who have keep hearing this, but I've been saying that you need to create an EV because this is a difference between a smart car and a dumb car. Electric vehicles are not just the batteries; it's the operating system for a smart car. And so this is a war between China, who has incentivized and you see that hundreds of car companies form to try to get into this business because
China is moving on to better forms of energy, batteries, solar, and electric vehicles, and they are really dismantling ICE vehicles, gas-powered vehicles. So they're moving into the future, that's for sure.
Because they heavily subsidize it, they heavily promote it, they heavily disincentivize it. And so they're all creating not just electric vehicles, they're creating smart cars. And then you can apply the AI to this because it's a computer on wheels. That's what this is. And it's just electrically driven. And then without all the, this whole hybrid thing is so dumb. They might survive, but you're talking about a combustion engine, which takes up all the space in the front. Then you're adding battery on top of it, so even more space. But you need that space if you're creating a robo-taxi first, experience, as we've been talking about, a lounge. So you need electric vehicles on a way to get to robo-taxi lounge experience, and it's a smart car. It's a bot.
Ultimately, it's going to be a race to who can make EV lounges at the most competitive price. And it's not about making them to sell to consumers. You and I will not care what the outside of the vehicle looks like.
Yep.
As long as it's proven safe, we want the inside to be the experience. And that's what anybody that's making a robotaxi needs to focus on, including Tesla.
Yep.
Well, that's why it's called a cyber cab. And the cyber van has been designed to be, or cyber truck has been designed to be as safe as possible. And that's the kind of the positioning of the marketing. It's also, that's why they're shooting guns at it. They're trying to show you that this thing is just, the toughest truck ever. Now you create a cyber cab, and then people are going to feel safe stepping into that thing, even if it just looks like a tank or stainless steel or some sort of steel. Doesn't have to be exactly what the Cybertruck has, but
you probably also want to create a vehicle that's easy for a humanoid robot to step into.
Well, like we've been saying all the time, it doesn't matter. If a human can step into it, it doesn't matter. That's what a human or robot can do.
Sure, although it would be very difficult for a humanoid to get into a Lamborghini, for example, right?
If it's built like a human, it would not be any difficult. It's just as difficult as you and I to get into a Lamborghini.
Eventually, I mean, as it stands now, it would be very challenging.
Right. Sure. But that's why I've been saying it needs to be the sliding, van-like doors, minivan-like doors.
Agreed.
We'll see. We're going to see on 1010. But what we talked about today, right, is robotaxi event that comes up. It's going to disrupt the ride-hailing taxi business, but it's also possibly going to disrupt many other industries. You just shared a few. I'd love you to do a deep dive on the shipping, the logistics, the Amazon idea, how much money that is, like relatively, and then also the transportation. How big is transportation beyond just city? If you can automate trucks, semis, right, which is robo trucks they call them, and then you automate enough of them to disrupt the trains. Apparently, that is massive industry. I'd love to know how much exactly.
That's right.
Yeah.
To give you some perspective on how much is going to disrupt this business of even hailing a ride. So if you look at it here, let me see if I can get it. So if you look at it here on this X post that I found, I forgot who it's from. Oh yeah, Tesla Archive. you can see over here on this left side. So on this side is the Robotaxi. Then you have Uber on the second column. Then you have Waymo and then Lyft. So let's go with, we're going to start with Lyft. So they took the same ride, right? They took the same ride on each of the platforms, and then they logged in on how much it costs. So for Lyft to go where it needed to go, which should be, let's see if it says it here. It does not say it here, but if I had to take a guess, maybe about a mile or two. If I had to take a guess, I could be wrong. Lyft right here, it says it was $10.85. So it breaks it down to 7.97 a mile, and that's a 2-minute wait time. Waymo was $21.54, $15.80 per mile, and a 6-minute wait. Uber was close to $10, $9.93. That is 7.30 per mile, and that's a 2-minute wait. But the Robotaxi here is $3.84. It cost them $3.84. Cost per mile was $2.82, and it was a 5-minute wait time. So you can see how much of a disruption this is going to be. This is going to be a big disruption that nobody is talking about. So it's just going to be definitely a thing to remember on how much this is going to be coming out for. So we're going to watch another video from Stephen Mark Ryan, which is solving the money problem. So we're going to go ahead and do that. So here. So we're going to watch this one. I've never seen this one. It says Tesla Bears gets destroyed by...
ARK Invest's Brett Winton has issued a warning. If you're in the US and you want a Model Y for individual personal use, you better act now. He explains that once the cars can roll out of the factory straight into serving as robotaxis, they become much, much, much more cash flow generative when sold to robotaxi fleet operators. Therefore, you'll probably have to wait until the Cybercab ramps up before the Model Y becomes again available to individuals. Won't be too long before we find out whether or not Brett's warning was valid. He posted this in response to a clip where he spoke to Dan, who you guys may recognize as one of the very reasonable, rational and totally unbiased folks occasionally appearing on the panel at CNBS, who's never shown any bias toward Tesla or Elon Musk, never actively bet against Tesla stock, and is therefore a very reasonable person with nothing but fair and reasonable opinions relating to Tesla. So let's see what happens when Brett of ARK Invest speaks to Dan about Tesla autonomy. I've not yet watched this clip, but I have a suspicion that there may be a slight contrast in terms of opinions, possibly a gaping chasm between the two perspectives of these gentlemen.
That's what I don't understand. Like, who's going to own the fleet? Because if they're going to be producing and the whole idea of depots and cleaning them and charging them, or having it come out of your Model Y, come out of your driveway and go to a depot. I mean, this is sci-fi shit. I mean, this is not happening in this. It's not happening in this decade.
It's happening in Austin right now.
So I'm going to try and be as reasonable, fair, and unbiased as I possibly can, keeping in mind that that's obviously impossible because I'm a deluded Tesla fanboy. I own some Tesla stock, and therefore I can't possibly have anything reasonable, rational, fair, or accurate to say about the company. But Dan dismissively makes the claim that the idea that Tesla vehicles will be operating autonomously, that people who own Tesla vehicles will be able to have them autonomously add themselves to the fleet, pick up and drop off passengers, blah, 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 is, quote, sci-fi shit, suggesting that it's a few quadrillion years into the future, give or take. Now, Brett counters by uncontrollably laughing at Dan, I understand why, and suggesting that this is happening already in Austin today. Now, if you happen to be a Poindexter, the first thing you might say is, well, actually, and then you start running down the list of things that technically are not occurring exactly right now, exactly as stated by Dan, and saying, look. But of course, if you're not retarded and you do actually have a brain and you use your brain, you might ask questions like, have we seen a Tesla Model Y roll off production lines in Austin, Texas, and then autonomously deliver itself to a customer?
Yes.
Roughly half-hour long, completely autonomous, self-delivering vehicle. Did that occur? Have we seen that entire self-delivery posted, the entire trip? The answer to that would be yes. Yeah. Now, what does that tell us? That tells us that there's evidence that Tesla vehicles, while not today leaving a customer's driveway and joining the robotaxi fleet in Austin, do in fact have the capability and also
All right, so there was one comment that says from Zito the Dragon. It says my BP and Chevron holdings have outperformed Tesla for the last 10 years. Yeah, I can see that for sure. But I would say in the next 10 years, it's not going to do it. Once everybody starts to understand that EVs are going to be the future, less people are going to drive, less people are going to want gas. And you know that BP is investing in supercharging stations. You know that, right? So maybe they know something that maybe you don't know. In that sense, I think that we will still have a petroleum-based society because, I mean, a lot of our stuff is run off, petroleum and oil for the last 100 years. So it's slowly going to increment over to renewables. I think it's going to substantially take some time. But I think once autonomous vehicles are out, I just think that it's going to substantially create definitely a hole for BP and Chevron in their holdings for it. So that's just my opinion. It's not financial advice.
Permission legally to do exactly that. Even a potato can see, well, if I drove myself from the factory to a customer's place half an hour away, probably not much of a stretch to imagine that exact same software and that exact same vehicle, instead of going from factory to customer's driveway, going from customer's driveway to downtown Austin, where they're already legally operating robotaxis, which brings me to the next point. Tesla now has a small fleet of Tesla Model Y vehicles legally driving customers autonomously in Austin, Texas. I have an extremely controversial opinion. Actually, I've got lots of them. Hello, I share them too. No fucks given. But I'm trolling in this case. My absolutely not at all controversial opinion is that if you have at least half a brain cell, you can join the dots. Tesla's legally operating robotaxis in Austin right now. They've expanded the service area twice within about 6 weeks, from launch to first expansion to second expansion.
Yep.
There's been zero safety critical incidents so far. In other words, not only are they legally operating this service, but doing so extremely safely. The fact that they've expanded twice is further evidence of their confidence in the safety profile of their vehicles. So they're already operating robotaxis legally in Austin, and we have seen the first self-delivering vehicle from Model Y to customer's driveway. So the dismissive nature of Dan either suggests that he's totally unaware that this is happening, or tinfoil hat alert, perhaps he's just so adamant that Elon bad, Tesla bad, short Tesla stock, etc., that he can't possibly accept reality. Now again, if you're a Poindexter, you're
but Dan said, what about the cleaning and the depots? That's not happening yet.
And of course, thank you once again for confirming that you are in fact an adult virgin. You got to join the dots here. There's no need for massive depots yet. Tesla's fleet's too small for that to be a big deal. But we're already seeing the pieces of the puzzle fall into place. The most important, of course, is legally and safely operating robotaxis, which is already happening.
Exactly.
Now, retard/hater, possibly the same thing, will point out, but there's a person in the driver's seat. Oh, wait, no, they're not. Oh, wait, no, that's not in Austin. Oh, sorry, silly me. I mean, there's a person in the passenger seat still in Austin, which means they're technically not even robotaxis, even though the person in the passenger seat's not driving the vehicle. See, doesn't even count. That's sci-fi shit. At which point I just say, look, I give up. I just can't get through to you. Now, this is very important because as far as I'm concerned, investing is about identifying opportunities in the future before everyone else has identified said opportunities and taken advantage of them. So if you can see all the pieces of the puzzle, a Model Y delivers itself to a customer from Tesla's factory. They're operating in Austin legally with robotaxis, with no one in the driver's seat, and they've expanded twice. They've also launched in California. If you're an investor and also not a moron, instead of reflexively dismissing the sci-fi shit, well, instead you go, oh, fuck, actually, good point. How long until this currently proven service has reached meaningful scale where it actually starts to move the needle financially for the company? That's the real question. The arrogance to dismiss, to imply that A, this is sci-fi shit, and B, it's not happening anytime soon, is next level. Again, investing is about identifying opportunities that will arise in the future, that will manifest in the future, before you have been bitch slapped in the face with the financial data to put in your spreadsheet. Dan is making a major mistake here, a major error of judgment, being so dismissive. I can understand the reaction of Brett of ARK Invest, laughing. This shit is already happening in Austin. Join the dots.
No, it's not. Who's going to own the fleet? No one wants to own these fleets.
Well, right now Tesla's on balance sheeting them. They could collateralize debt, fund the cost of goods sold, and hold them on balance sheet. My guess is they will sell them to operators. The real question is, like,
what percent of Ubers? All right, hold on a second. What percent of Ubers are owned by operators? It's like less than 15%.
Is this? All I really don't want to be too mean to Dan, but it's very hard not to just describe him accurately, which would be it's completely fucking retarded. Most Ubers,
Agreed.
The vehicle is owned by the driver because a driver is necessary. And it just so happens that people who own a vehicle and also drive an Uber will combine those two facts and drive the vehicle that they own on Uber. This is not a very good comparison. In fact, it's completely irrelevant and invalid. This, by the way, is a common mistake I see over and over and over when people are looking at anything that Tesla's doing. They grasp desperately and try to find something they can compare to, think they found a valid and applicable example when they have not, and then go, look, see, this is hard to watch. Good luck to Brett maintaining his composure in the face of such absolute retardation.
Of course, because Uber, you have to attach a driver to. It's like, you know, the fact that the driver has to sit in the car means the driver's going to own the asset. If you don't have to have the driver sit in the car, then somebody could run a fleet. Because right now, if I'm going to run a fleet of Ubers, I also have to hire Uber drivers. That's very hard to get the labor in place to run this. So think about it this way: if Tesla can either get 8,000 gross profit for selling to me, or some tens of thousands of dollars in gross profit for either on balance sheeting the asset or selling to an operator, why would they sell to the individual anymore? And if you want a Model Y, like, you probably have to buy it sometime over the next 6 months.
Yes. What is the incentive to sell it to individual owners like myself? There is none. They could just keep cranking out Model Ys out of the production line and just say, go on Robotaxi Network, because they make way more money than they will selling it to the individual owner for one time, when they can just own that fleet and make money hand over fist over it.
Because I don't think they're going to be available next year for individual.
No, stop it. I mean, come on. I mean, like, give me a break.
People,
and you know what?
If you want the option value of having your own vehicle that can drive itself around, your own vehicle that becomes its own chauffeur, like, better act now. You're gonna try to buy a Tesla, and they're gonna be like, well, we could sell it to you, but we have to sell it to you for $250,000 because of how much gross profit it would generate.
Oh my God, give me a break. This is gonna be maybe like a 2032 thing, but again.
So a 2032 thing, apparently. I think Brett's expression says it all. Now, again, we are already seeing Tesla Model Ys, the same vehicles that Brett has just explained. You might want to buy one now. And the reason, of course, is their cash flow generating potential when autonomous is astronomical, meaning there's likely to be a massive imbalance between supply and demand. We are seeing those exact same vehicles right now, legally and safely operating in Austin, Texas. He does have a point. The logic here checks out. Is there anyone watching who thinks it will take 7 years, more than half a decade, before it will be possible for people to purchase Tesla vehicles to operate as fleet owners? 7 years between legally, safely operating in Austin, expanding multiple times in Austin, launching in California, and people buying Tesla vehicles to operate commercially as robotaxis. 7 years?
Again, you're the futurist. Listen, you and I can
a 2030 thing. What planet are you on?
These things don't scale. I love Waymo. Waymo's been on the street. They're like, you're.
Dude, Brett's expressions are just absolutely incredible. So, I mean, I don't want to be too hard on Dan, but I can't not tell the truth. He's retarded. He's now just grasped at another irrelevant example, which is Waymo. I can see where he's going with this. He's just said that these things don't scale. And rather than looking at Tesla, who, by the way, again, launched in Austin, expanded in Austin, launched in California, expanded again in Austin, spent about 6 weeks, scaling at a staggering rate, Tesla's done in a few months what Waymo took the better part of a literal decade to do in terms of scaling.
Yes.
Clearly showing that Tesla is scaling a lot faster than Waymo. Dan suggested that these things, as in all robotaxis, because obviously what Waymo and Tesla are doing, totally identical, as if the rate of expansion that Waymo has demonstrated historically, using a totally different technological approach, pre-mapping in high definition, covered in LiDAR and blah, 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 is a cut and dry example of how quickly Tesla could possibly scale their robotaxi fleet, despite the fact of the Austin launch, the expansion, the launch of California, and another expansion in Austin. Like, why is Dan ignoring these facts? The look on Brett's face. This is the exact moment that Dan says these things right there. This is after Dan just said these things won't scale quickly, right? He's gone from laughing to, bro, what the fuck? Now, of course, I don't think Brett's going to describe Dan as completely retarded, but
are you sure?
I wonder what he was thinking at this exact moment. Oh, man. I feel so bad, like, punching down on Dan. Like, just, he's obviously really dumb. At least in this one facet. But the things he's saying are so idiotic that it's difficult to be gentle here. I mean, again, Brett's face says it all, dude. I'm going to rewind a second. Just watch this. It's glorious.
What planet are you
because
on?
these things don't scale. I love Waymo. Waymo's been on the street. They're like you own a car that's got supervised full.
When he says that they can't scale, Waymo cannot scale as fast as Tesla can. I think I checked on the statistic. I think Waymo is supposed to have 10,000 more vehicles. Yeah, Waymo's new manufacturing facility, when at full capacity, will be capable of building tens of thousands of vehicles. Okay. Tens of thousands of vehicles. So the 6th generation, so that's a 239,000 square foot plant. So that's just very odd. So Tesla does exactly it's going to be roughly anywhere between 1.7 to 2 million vehicles this year alone. Majority of that coming from X and Y. I mean, excuse me, not X and Y, Model 3 and Y. So
self-driving. You have an S in front of your FSD, like yes, you know, and right so. Now.
Just very quickly wanted to comment on Dan's implication that FSD currently has an S for supervised. Therefore, obviously, it's not capable of doing anything at all, because that's the thinking right now. Instead of actually watching the software operate and watch the supervisor do approximately nothing and acknowledging, oh, okay, wait. So the supervisor on that particular trip that I just watched that lasted 15 minutes did nothing. They were there supervising, but had to intervene 0 times. I guess the software was driving the whole time. Instead of acknowledging that point, we fall back to,
well, technically somebody needs to supervise, therefore it's not doing anything, therefore invalid, doesn't count.
Now, this is a very, very common mistake I see made from a lot of Tesla haters. We are investors, right? So we're trying to identify things that will occur in the future before they occur. Like, for example, magically, suddenly the S disappearing and it's no longer requiring supervision. And how would we know if that might happen? And if so, what sort of time frame? Well, perhaps we could actually watch or use the software ourselves and note how infrequent interventions from the human supervisor are. That might be a useful data point. So too, the observation of the thousands and thousands and thousands of completely autonomous rides already taking place so far in Austin. At some point, FSD users will no longer need to supervise. The only thing to focus on here is what is the software currently capable of doing today, not who's supervising. Are they in the driver's seat? Are they in the passenger seat? Just watch the software operate. Watch how much of the ride it's doing versus the human quote-unquote supervisor. That will tell you everything you need to know about its current capabilities. If you continue to do this, you'll also be able to determine its rough trajectory and rate of improvement.
And yeah, I think there's an interesting open question about between the robotaxi business. I think they'll be able to deliver as someone who has FSD. When will that be able to be unsupervised? And when it can be unsupervised, are they going to have an operator that is overseeing it in a data center? That's an interesting question, because I've paid up front for something that is a price that didn't accommodate, the labor cost of an operator overseeing my vehicle as I'm sending it off to park. And so I don't know how they're going to, they may hold off on delivering unsupervised while they're scaling out robotaxi, just because we don't know to what degree the operators will need to be instrumentally involved.
So I was about to interrupt, but apparently that's the end of the clip. Now, I do have some thoughts on this. I'm almost certain that Tesla is going to focus on scaling their robotaxi fleet before they focus on enabling FSD unsupervised for customers throughout the US and the world. Bang for buck, return on investment. Makes a lot more sense for Tesla to focus on this. Keep in mind, Tesla has a lot more control over their decision to operate robotaxis in a particular area, particular city, then an expansion, than they do enabling FSD for a certain customer. Never mind the issues. What if that customer crosses state lines? It's a complicated mess. Personally, I would expect Tesla's robotaxi fleet to be servicing a huge percentage of all US citizens before they start enabling FSD unsupervised. I just want to put my final thoughts out here. Dan is representative of many people who are going to miss a very significant opportunity as a result of arrogance, hubris, or possibly severe incurable DMF syndrome. How many more data points do people like Dan need to see? How many more thousands of trips in Tesla robotaxis? Safe, incident-free trips. In how many more cities? How many more expansions of service areas? Before they ask themselves, did I really just discover thousands of safe, fully autonomous trips in Tesla Model Ys operating as robotaxis for paying customers have actually taken place? It's not sci-fi shit, but it's literally happening right now. If I'm being honest, folks, I really do think this comes down to arrogance. I think Dan is so arrogant in his own worldview that he's completely overlooking such extremely obvious data points. Tesla launching in Austin, expanding in Austin, a few weeks later in the shape of a dick just for the lols, launching in California, and then expanding again in Austin. So arrogant, heads so far up his own ass, that instead of seeing a Tesla vehicle drive itself from the Gigafactory in Texas to a customer, half an hour drive, safe, legal, and successful, and being able to join the dots, well, instead of the factory, that could have been a customer's driveway. And since they're already operating robotaxis in downtown Austin, I mean, hypothetically, if there was a customer who lived within half an hour of downtown Austin, hypothetically, their Model Y could have driven from their driveway to downtown Austin and be picking up and dropping off passengers. Oh, shit. Instead of saying that and joining the dots, oh, that's sci-fi shit. It's 2032 shit. I think Brett really did have a valid question when asking Dan what planet was he on, because it ain't Earth. It ain't even in the same fucking solar system, bruv. Want more content? Early access? A bunch of perks? Click the links in the pinned comment. AG.
So if you haven't seen that video, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. Delivery autonomously. So if you haven't seen it, let's see if we can find the video that Tesla put out. Well, they're already driving around the factory here. Oh, here it is right here. So we'll speed this up. So you can see there's nobody in the car. It's going to somebody's factory right here, another camera inside of the car. This is the factory right here on the side of the building. Currently traveling south. So you can see this is a 30-minute drive. Austin going westbound. So you can only imagine that this is live. Now these are what my cars are. My cars will be robotaxi driverless vehicle ride. We'll keep on. Right over there. So great. So really nothing to it, guys. There's really nothing to this whole situation with it. So let's see if we can find another short video and stuff. Let me see here. Well, I'll let this keep playing actually on live stream. TikTok guys are gonna oh yeah. Solving problem. He is oh yeah, right here. So here's another good video to watch. So, Let me see if I can try to get this over. There we go. Oops. Let's get this off. Oopsies. Chrome. There we go. Sorry. Let's see. Tony Siebert. I think this is him. So here we go with this guy.
Economy, information, energy, transportation, and materials. These are phase change disruptions. And I'll explain what that means. But if all you do is walk away with that concept, then that is what explains what is going on in the world. And phase change disruptions are happening at all levels, at the product level, at the sector level, at the economy, and even all
this will be probably the last video.
This is one of the most important videos I'll ever post on this channel. Of course, I haven't done the heavy lifting. That's on Tony. What a legend. I want to make sure that I amplify these ideas and broadcast this to a large audience because people need to hear this. If you own Tesla stock or any automotive stocks, you must understand these critically important concepts. I'm not joking when I say this is one of the most important videos I've ever posted on this channel. The implications are profound. Speaking of important videos, you're not going to believe this, but I dropped 2 exclusive videos on Patreon this morning, both way too spicy for YouTube. I mean, I did tell you guys I was taking over Patreon, so you shouldn't be surprised, but if you haven't seen those already and you're on Patreon, I implore you, please watch both of today's videos, especially the most recent. And if you aren't on Patreon, it's only a matter of time till you join, so may as well put yourself out of the misery and click the card in the corner. Comment. Now, let's get straight into it.
So I am going to distill 6 publications, books, and reports that I've published over the last few years in this presentation. And I'm going to start with how disruption really works. What are the patterns of change, big change, and transformation? So we live in an equilibrium, meaning let's talk about a sector, for instance. Our electricity grid has been there for about 100 years. And there's been innovation within the grid. There's been new types of electricity generation technologies, but the grid has more or less stayed the same over the last 100 years, an equilibrium.
So roughly a century, not much change, sounds right for disruption. Anyone know any companies that may be possibly in a situation, a position to disrupt the electrical grid? You know, like virtual power plants, software to perform energy arbitrage, to pull energy off peak, store in a battery, sell back to the grid during on peak, participate in virtual power plants as a distributed utility. Anyone know any companies that have already built out some of the infrastructure and technology to begin disrupting the energy grid? Nah, neither do I. I kind of wish there was one because I'd probably buy their stock.
But at the same time as there is an equilibrium in a certain value chain, technologies are improving in cost and capabilities. Every technology is improving. Almost every technology is improving in cost and capability at different rates. So solar PV improves at a certain rate, lithium-ion batteries improve at a certain rate, computing improves at a certain rate.
So, according to this genius over here, solar is improving at a certain, aka a predictable rate. Lithium-ion batteries are improving at a predictable rate. So too computers. That's such a crazy idea. I mean, if that was true, which is obviously not true, fake news, hello, fact check false. If that were actually true, then wouldn't it mean that there would be some companies out there who would have, I don't know, used their brains a little bit and thought, if those things are predictably declining in costs over time, that means we can predict what the costs will be in a future point in time. And if they're lower than they are today, and they're going to keep getting lower and it's predictable, doesn't that mean that we could kind of know roughly what it's going to cost in the future and then see an opportunity there and start pursuing that opportunity? But of course, what he said is false. Otherwise, there'd be companies out there named after famous inventors who had actually been aware of these predictable cost declines on said technologies and built enormous multi-billion, potentially in the future multi-trillion-dollar businesses on the top of said opportunities. Of course, if what he said is true, then obviously legacy automotive manufacturers would have realized this as well, especially on the predictably declining battery costs, and thought, if these battery costs continue to predictably decline over time, doesn't that mean that those electric vehicles that currently aren't cost competitive in terms of the range and the purchase price will eventually become
cost competitive, and then so much better value that consumers will literally need to be suffering from brain damage to buy ICE vehicles? And if that's the case, should we not then go all in on EVs ASAP to avoid imminent bankruptcy in the 2030s? Of course, this is all hypothetical because obviously what he said is definitely not true. Battery costs, solar costs, and computing power is not predictably declining and or improving. There's nothing predictable about this. I mean, after all, if it were true, surely all of the experts with their predictions would have taken this into account and not been completely wrong about literally everything.
And at some point, they converge to open up a vast new possibility space. So what is possible essentially changes, both on the collapse and on the creation side. Everything changes. But the incumbents don't see it. The incumbents don't see it. Entrepreneurs do. Artists do, but incumbents don't see it.
You did it, Mary. You failed to see it, and it matters.
Entrepreneurs come in. So think about Tesla in 2010, or the solar companies and battery companies that were started around that time, because they saw that possibility space open up. So they come in, they start companies, they develop products and services that improve in cost and capability over the following few years. And at some point, that product or service hits a rupture point. It ruptures that equilibrium. That equilibrium does not exist anymore. The old rules don't apply anymore. Now, the new rules may not be clear, but the old rules don't apply anymore. That's what's happening today in many sectors, in energy, in transportation, in food, and so on. Once we rupture that system,
Exactly.
If you take 30 linear steps of 1 meter each, take 30 linear steps, you end up 30 meters away from your starting point. If you take 30 exponential steps, as in 1 meter, then 2 meters, then 4 meters, then 8, doubling every time, you end up just slightly more than 30 meters away from your starting point. And what I mean point after literally circling the earth multiple times first. Not a single person, had I asked previously, how far would you walk if you took 30 exponential steps? Would have been even close, not even in the same order of magnitude, because we suck at understanding exponential growth. Exactly. This is why it's so important to use your brain and a calculator and look at the data and the evidence instead of intuiting what you think might happen. Because if you use your intuition to try to intuit something about exponentials, it's not going to work. You're going to be so far off the mark, it's embarrassing, and then you're going to look like an absolute fucking moron. Case in point, literally every CEO of every automotive manufacturer on the goddamn planet, except of course Tesla, who actually, instead of using their intuition, used their brains and numbers and did some thinking, drew some conclusions, and are almost single-handedly responsible for disrupting the entire automotive industry.
So the new emerges with higher level of capabilities and many times at a lower cost per unit, and the old essentially crashes.
Pretty sure, we guys listening, I think what he just said was rest in peace legacy automotive manufacturers, all going bankrupt before the end of the decade. I'm pretty sure that's exactly what he said. I'm pretty sure that was a direct quote, word for word, I swear.
The new eventually becomes the new equilibrium. So think about electric vehicles and so on. They're going to become a new equilibrium, but it's not what you think. It's not a one-to-one substitution, because that's a phase change disruption. But that new system will become a new equilibrium with new rules and new dynamics and new patterns. Let's start with how to understand how disruptions happen. Let's start with technology cost curves. So back in 2014, I published a book called clean disruption of energy and transportation. And they published this exact cost curve for lithium-ion batteries out to 2030. And you can't imagine how I was trolled for publishing that. $125 per kilowatt hour by 2022. It's never going to happen. What are you smoking, right?
Funnily enough, on a personal matter, I too can relate to being trolled for making what sound like absolutely absurd predictions at the time that later turn out to be on the f***ing money. Let's take a moment here, credit where it's due. Tony Seba is literally one of the OGs of actually having a f***ing brain and using it. He's been calling this shit to a T for the last decade. He does not get enough credit for this. This guy's been screaming from the rooftops, banging the drum. Hey guys, electric vehicles, clean energy, here's the numbers, here's the stats, here's the cost curves, hello, the experts are wrong, let me explain why, look. Literally no one listened. Eventually, they will be listening. The same people who trolled this guy, oh, you're a f***ing idiot, what are you talking about, bro? The same people that running automotive companies that will soon be driving them bankrupt, get it because that was bad, I'll just leave it. Bad joke's better than no joke, right? It takes courage and confidence to stand up and scream from the rooftops something you know you'll be mocked and ridiculed for because people just don't get it. They're unwilling to even think. They'll just automatically dismiss you as crazy until it turns out you were right. The fact that Tony's been consistent in his messaging for a decade, massive credit where it's due.
Correct.
And here we are. It's been almost exactly what I forecast. Cost curves are like gravity. I don't care what your opinion is. Cost curves are like gravity. They will happen. The cost curve of lithium-ion batteries is going exactly as I predicted. But the big disruptions, the phase change disruptions, happen because of something that I call technology convergence. Now, what is a convergence? Let's go back to 2007. The iPhone and Android basically became possible. Both of them happened the same year, 2007. But why not 2003 or 2010? Why 2007? That's because the technologies that made a $600 smartphone possible essentially converged 2007. And that's when Apple and Google came into the space and essentially developed a smartphone. And now they're both multi-trillion-dollar companies. So technology convergence opens up the possibility space. The other lesson is that neither Apple nor Google had ever built a phone before. So disruptions, the phase change disruptions, happen from the edge, not from the center.
Yes, and yes. He's absolutely right, and this is such an important point. Disruptions almost never happen from within. They're almost always from somebody, a company, on the edge, the outside, the periphery. Countless examples of this. Incumbents get stuck in their own ways, their own way of thinking. Then they start getting into a gigantic fucking circle jerk. Yep, I agree, everything. Yep, everything's fine. Yep, I agree with you. You agree with me. No dissent, no dissenting opinions. Okay, great, everything's fine. Next minute, they're out of business because they didn't see shit, because they got too comfortable and cozy with the way things are. If you as a company are not continually trying to put yourself out of business by disrupting your own technology, your own products, your own innovations, you eventually will be disrupted by a company that is attempting to disrupt your own technology, your own products, your own innovations, your own services. It's just how things work. There are countless examples of this. And on the topic of Tesla, which is highly relevant to this video, most of you, after all, do own Tesla stock. Tesla themselves are constantly trying to disrupt their own products. You notice the S and X come out and they go, well, you know what? We need a cheaper, higher production vehicle. Let's cannibalize our own products, the S and X, by introducing one that's basically half the price, the 3 and Y. And they're about to do it again with a more affordable Tesla. Most Harvard MBAs would have a heart attack at the very idea of creating a product that's going to cannibalize sales from one of the other existing products. It's a money printer. But if you do not continually focus on disrupting yourself, somebody else will eventually do it.
The incumbents at the time, Motorola, remember them? BlackBerry, remember them? They could have got into the space, but they did not see it coming. Microsoft did not see it coming. They actually dismissed the smartphone loudly. So this is the technology convergence. And if you look at that, the adoption of the smartphone happened as an S-curve. So I've been following a number of key technologies for many years, and these technologies are a subset of the ones that in convergence at different sectors at different times are essentially disrupting everything over the next 10, 15 years.
Let's play a fun little game called How Many of These Apply to Tesla? Let's run down the list on screen now. Number 1, Artificial intelligence and machine learning.
Grok.
Do these apply to Tesla? Hell fucking yes. Notice it's also the top of the list. Number 2, precision biology. Nah, not relevant, at least not yet. 3, robotics. Hell fucking yes. Solar. Hell fucking yes. Batteries. Hell fucking yes. Sensors. Hell fucking yes. Now, Tony hasn't mentioned specifically whether or not these are in order of priority and potential to disrupt, but spoiler alert, they obviously are. I mean, it's obvious. AI and precision biology, literally the 2 most important disruptive technologies of the next couple of decades, are number 1 and 2. How many of these apply to government motors? Count them. I mean, seriously. It's a fun exercise.
When a possibility space opens up, new business model innovation also becomes possible, not only new products. So think about Uber, which was started in an apartment here in San Francisco in 2009, exactly 2 years after the iPhone came out. Is that coincidence? Not at all. 2 years after. That's because the iPhone opened up the possibility space for ride hailing, actually the iPhone and the internet and so on. And if you think about it, Uber had more bookings than the whole taxi industry in America within just 7 years. And that's another lesson. Disruptions in foundational sectors like transportation or energy do happen very quickly. In this case, 7 years. They disrupted the taxi industry in America.
Hey, sorry to interrupt, but does anyone kind of get the feeling that maybe we're about to see round 2 of the taxi / now the Uber industry being disrupted? Autonomy, robo-taxis, hail on demand? Yeah, nah, it's probably nothing.
And that's not all. Of course, they've gone on to disrupt other industries.
Or disruptive technology.
S-curve, market adoption S-curve. Technology adoption always happens as S-curves if they're successful. If not, they just crash, right? So back to the car and the horse. In 13 years, we saw those pictures in New York City. At the level of the United States of America, adoption of the car went from essentially nil to about 95% of miles within 20 years. And it happened as an S-curve. That's not the big thing. It went from about 10% to about 80% in just 10 years, in just 1 decade. In just 1 decade, the bulk of that transportation disruption happened despite building those 2 industries, the auto industry and the oil industry, despite building a new road infrastructure, despite fighting World War I and the meanest influenza pandemic in history. So despite all of these things, the bulk of the major transportation disruption of the 20th century happened, the bulk within 10 years.
So I think what he's trying to say is Toyota's current plans of about 2/3 of all of their vehicles sold in 2030 still being internal combustion engine vehicles is definitely not a problem. There's nothing to see here, and they're definitely not going bankrupt as a result of this incompetence. I think that's what he's trying to say. And I'm pretty sure by extension that also means the brain-dead internal combustion engine vehicle manufacturers who still have plans to be producing ICE vehicles beyond 2030, some of them beyond 2035, also have nothing to worry about because disruption takes time.
So anyone who tells you that major disruptions cannot happen in 10 to 15 years is not looking at the evidence. We have uncovered dozens of cases in many industries throughout time of disruptions that have happened in 10 to 15 years, from healthcare to materials, to transportation, energy, and so on. And if anything, S-curves are accelerating. Disruptions that may have taken decades in the past, now they're taking place in years, maybe even months. So again, anyone who tells you that a major disruption cannot happen in 10 to 15 years
may be suffering from clear signs of brain damage. Oh, sorry, I interrupted Tony. I'm not sure. Let him finish his thought. Sorry, that was rude, wasn't it? I won't interrupt again, I promise.
Is not looking at the evidence. The mainstream keeps pushing this linearity. I mean, the EIA, look at their forecasts, 20 years of forecasts in solar PV. Every year they've been wrong by 30 to 40% because they just extrapolate.
Hey guys, so I've just done a search for the definition of being consistently wrong by 20 to 30% year after year. We're here on the Google definition thing. So what is the definition of being consistently wrong by 20 to 30% year after year? Brain damage. And we've got a use case here. Quote, "You are suffering from brain damage. Stop making predictions, you stupid motherfucker." As you can see, I mean, it's obviously real. I didn't do anything funny here. So I think I don't need to say anything else. It's all here.
They draw a straight line into the future, and they say this is the adoption of solar until 2040 or 2050, just a straight line. But never ever is adoption of...
On screen now, I just wanted to highlight something very important. Notice, these are predictions, conventional forecasts in grey versus the reality in green. And as you can see, these linear forecasts are beyond embarrassing. Case in point, some of the earlier forecasts here predicting, I don't know, best guess, maybe 50 gigawatt hours, if I'm being generous, of solar by 2030, whereas that level was reached around 2009 and then quickly exceeded 10 times that idiotic prediction of 500 megawatts by about 2015, 2016. And every time these fuckwits don't learn, the curve starts moving up exponentially and they just go, well, it's going to go linear from here because we've been wrong about everything with our linear extrapolations previously, but we're just going to keep doing the same dumb shit and being wrong. The margin of error is astonishing. These aren't little tiny mistakes. They're colossal errors to the point of embarrassment. I mean, IEA World Energy should be fucking disgraced. I mean, give up. Just quit. Give up, okay? If you're this wrong for this long, consistently in the same direction, you've learned something about your predictions. Not only are they inaccurate, they are so wrong, it is truly embarrassing. If I had anything to do with these predictions, I would be ashamed. Literally ashamed of myself. How can you be this wrong for this long and keep making the exact same fucking mistake? Oh, I know. Because when you're an expert, that's all that matters. If you're an expert, your expert predictions are infallible. And if they're wrong, don't need to reassess, just make another prediction next year and be wrong again and then another. Of course, the hilarious part is many people outsource their thinking to so-called experts and rely upon these idiotic forecasts. That's why most of these moronic automotive companies didn't see EVs coming, and now it's too late. They didn't do their own thinking. They relied upon the experts. Never outsource your thinking on anything that matters to anyone. If you're a long-term viewer of this channel, you may have noticed I have an intense disdain for so-called experts who don't know what the fuck they are talking about. There's nothing wrong with having no idea what you're talking about, as long as you explain that you have no idea what you're talking about. I don't really know anything, but here's what I think I know. But see, the problem is, experts, and I don't just include the agencies forecasting EV adoption, battery growth, and so on. I also refer to everybody who automatically assumes a position of authority. They're an expert by default. They are automatically pedestalized by their very position. For example, a sharp-dressed guy in makeup wearing a nice suit on CNBS is automatically credible because he's on the television and he's wearing a suit and he's clean-shaven. Therefore, I can trust him. Really. Oh, this person's a politician. Definitely not a raging narcissist with an intense need for power and control who'll do whatever it takes to become elected and remain elected. They're a politician. I can trust them because they're a politician. Oh, my government told me to do something. Well, it's my government. I can trust them because they're the government. They're an authority. They're the experts. So I'll just do what they say because they know best. I could rattle off 1,000 other examples, but you guys get the point. That also includes dickheads on YouTube. Oh, by the way, here's a pro tip. I don't know if you guys have realized this. You probably didn't. I didn't explain it, but here's a fact. You notice that I look like a fucking dickhead? I sound like a fucking dickhead. I don't shave that often. Dumbass backwards hat, t-shirt, film in my fucking kitchen. Why do I do that? It's an intentional strategy to ensure that people don't unintentionally pedestalize me because I'm some guy on YouTube. If I was trying to get your trust and fake you into thinking that I know what I'm talking about, I'd have a nice suit, I'd never swear, I'd be clean shaven, I'd never share my thoughts and opinions so abrasively. Instead, I'd be the thing I thought I needed to be, to automatically assume a position of authority and credibility over you minions watching me on YouTube because I'm the expert because I'm on YouTube. You know, it does feel good to finally explain the YouTube strategy here. I've intentionally done my best to avoid people putting me unnecessarily on a pedestal. The hilarious thing I get in the comments sometimes from people, well-meaning, I'm sure.
Nobody can take you seriously with your hat backwards, bro. What the f*** is wrong with you, man? Take your hat off. Stop f***ing swearing. No one's gonna take you seriously if you swear all the time. Do you not understand?
I just wanted to put that out there. The only time a so-called expert should be given any credibility whatsoever is if they are, in fact, wait for it, credible through their predictions and their actions, their track record, not their appearance, or the situation in which you find them, for example, presenting news and information in the mainstream media. Therefore, they must be credible, right? Wrong.
New technologies never ever are disruptions linear. They're S-curves, right? So if you look at the green line, which is reality, it's starting to look like an S-curve. That's solar PV. And the opposite is true, the collapse. So if you look at some of the forecasts for coal in America by the US Department of Energy, essentially every year they're saying that coal is going to flatten.
Again, I just want to make sure everybody is paying attention to these embarrassing predictions on screen now. The predictions versus the reality. This is farcical. This is an indictment on the absolute incompetence of these so-called expert forecasts. They're not off by a little bit. They're off by a catastrophic, embarrassing margin, yet they still don't learn every year.
Oh, well, we'll just do the same shit we did last year. Don't need to learn anything. Don't need to think about why we were so wrong last year and the year before and the year before. Because we're the experts.
So they draw a flat line into the future. But in fact, if you look at the black dots, coal is collapsing as it should, as an inverted S-curve, right? So the reality is that adoption takes place as S-curves of the new, and collapse of the old also happens as S-curves, as inverted S-curves. So here's the question. Why do smart people in smart organizations, very smart people, former entrepreneurs, billionaires, and so on, fail to anticipate and let alone lead market disruptions? The incumbent mindset, linear, reductionist, mechanistics, they just don't see new opportunity spaces open up. They just extrapolate from the present into a future that is
on a disruptive technology like this, like Tesla's doing with EVs and doing it with humanoid robots and solar and batteries and even refining lithium. So
essentially a mirage.
God damn, what a great line. They essentially extrapolate into the future. The future, of course, that they're extrapolating into is a mirage. Well said, Tony.
Plus or minus, right? With incremental changes. And like I said, disruptions don't work that way. And that's why these companies collapse. And when they do, they collapse very quickly.
Would this be an appropriate opportunity to bring up legacy automotive manufacturers, or is that a little bit too much of a low blow, too awkward and too obvious?
And I call that market trauma. And market trauma means that financial collapse can happen early, quickly, and disproportionately. So if you think about General Electric, one of the premier industrial companies of the 20th century, essentially GE Power collapsed in 2018, even though solar, wind, and batteries were just a couple of % of the market, right? They did not see the quick adoption, but the collapse of their valuation happened very quickly. The stock market valuation dropped by more than 70% in a year, and it has never really recovered.
So I guess this would also be a really bad time to troll some of the brain-dead stock analysts on Wall Street who are currently recommending investors buy legacy automotive manufacturer stocks because they're great deals. Yeah, it's too easy. I won't.
One of the premier industrial companies of the 20th century, which had all the information in the world. They were in the wind turbine market and they did not see the disruption. Phase change disruption leads to new systems with new properties. And this is what's happening in food, energy, transportation, information, materials, and so on. These are not just substitutions of the old. These are brand new systems, right? So back to the car and the horse. We saw that from the early 1900s to about 1925, the car over 20 years went from almost nil to about 95% of the market. And of course, the market share of the horse collapsed as an inverted S-curve. At the time, Ford famously said that if he had asked what the market wanted, they said a faster horse. To them, the car was a faster horse, right? It was a one-to-one substitution of the horse, only faster. But we know that is not the case, right? The car transportation system was a brand new system, new properties, new dynamics, new metrics, new size. Even by the late 2020s, the car market was hundreds of times larger than the horse market ever was. And it created a whole new system. And not just in transportation. We built the 20th century around car and oil, right? And electricity. But the car changed everything in the 20th century, not just for transportation. It changed everything for society. We built cities around the car. The geopolitics of the 20th century were based on petroleum, still are, if you think about it, right? And the petroleum, of course, was the source of energy for the internal combustion engine car. Governance changed, politics changed, the economy changed because of the car. So these are phase change disruptions with cascading ripple effect. So a way to think about it is that a butterfly is not a faster Caterpillar.
But Tesla is just a car company.
A new system. It's a new life form, if you will. And if you think that you can add wings to a caterpillar and you have a butterfly, well, that's what a lot of incumbents think.
He's too f***ing good, this guy. He's too f***ing good. Case in point, if you've been following the Tesla story for a long time, give or take a decade, you'll have seen the same idiotic comments from the same idiotic people who do think you can stick wings on a caterpillar and suddenly it's a butterfly. What do I mean? Literally every single dipshit ever who said, oh, the competition is coming, and their reasoning was, well, these companies make ICE vehicles, aka caterpillars. All they need to do is stick some wings on, like Tesla's doing, and suddenly they're making butterflies. It's not that simple, as these companies are only just starting to discover.
But again, a butterfly is not a caterpillar with wings, right? It needs to go through a phase transformation to become a butterfly. And when it does, it can fly. It's a new system with new metrics, new properties. It eats different, it behaves differently, right? So tastes and preferences change because of phase change transformation. When the car disrupted the horse, what happened to all those horses that were disrupted? We ate them. Now, not you and me, of course, but we ate them. Transportation became food. Yep. Think about it. Think about how preferences and tastes change. So the smartphone, the internet, and the cloud did not just disrupt information technology, which of course they did. They actually, if you think about the car itself, they're unbundling the value of the car, of the individually owned car. And I'll come back to that later. The value for our parents of the car included things like dating and mating.
He ain't wrong. What's the saying? If the cars are rocking, don't come knocking.
Right? Yeah. But we don't need a car for
very
that
true,
anymore.
Very true.
We have dating apps. We used to go to the movies. Now we can stream. We used to eat at restaurants and we needed cars to take us there. We don't anymore, right? Groceries, we have delivery. Work, now we work from home, at least some of the time. And more that's going to be the case. So a lot of the sources of value of the individually owned car are being destroyed by information technology. And that's happening today. And that happened even before the major disruption of transportation.
Brilliant presentation. So many important nuggets there. This guy gets it, making him one of the few on planet Earth. I still do not think most people, even those watching this channel, understand how violent this disruption will be and how much carnage will lay in its wake. Yep. This is not hyperbole. Those of you with access to my Tesla valuation model have seen my own estimates.
So you can see what it's going to do, right? The disruption of a lot of stuff that has to do with cars is going to be autonomous now. So I'm going to leave you with this one more thing that I wanted to show you that supposedly is a rumor, and that could be on the next update as we speak, is going to be this guy right here. That guy is the new update, supposedly, that's going to happen. You can see how creative that they are getting now with the UI screen to show more detail than what the current screen is. So anyways, I just want to let you guys know I'll be watching more videos tomorrow afternoon. I will probably be on here for like an hour or so. So thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it so much, and you guys have a good night. And please subscribe to all my other socials. It's located on this page. If you take a scan on the QR code, it'll lead you to another page that has all my social media. So thank you guys for watching, and have a good